I'm taking notes. You guys are getting all the course, the recorded session.
Yeah.
Regularly you're getting, right, after the class
Yes.
complete. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. See, today date is 16/07/2023. Let's have a recap. What topic we discussed yesterday? We started
About
DNS topic,
DNS.
DNS.
right? We understood what is DNS, right? We understood how DNS works, right? Basically, when you talk about resolving, right? Name resolving. So we see that is in by example. Name resolving means what? We have built one, small web page, and we have checked this is initially it was accessing by IP, and if it is accessing name through name, what we need to do? We have to create a host record in DNS, correct? Then you have to refer, relate with the IP address. What is that, right? Relate the IP. So this is very basic, very standard process to understanding the name. But when you talk about some functionality or some terminology in a DNS, we discussed there is a primary zone, or we also discussed it is also called as a primary DNS server, right? And in the primary DNS server, basically you can consider two type of DNS server, right? Two type of DNS server. One is, you can say, primary DNS server and secondary DNS server. So under the primary or primary zone, you have the lookup zone, right? We discussed what are those. One we can say FLZ, it means forward lookup zone, right? Which is resolving IP to name, and reverse lookup zone RLZ, right? Reverse lookup zone, which is name to IP. And the same in the forward lookup zone, to resolving you must need a records, right? Basically you have a records. So with the help of these records only you will be able to. What are those records? We discussed number one, name service record. Number two,
A record.
a record, which is, you can say single A,
4.
or you can say 4A. What do you mean by 4A and single A? It's IP version 4 and IP version 6.
Version 4 and version 6.
Right. And the third one is we say start of authority, right? Which is NS means what? Name server. And this is post record. This is start of authority. Right? These basically three major records, and apart from this, we have this MX record, which is called as a mail exchange record, right? And the fifth one is PTR record, which is called as a pointer record. And the sixth one is CNAME, which is called as a, you can also call as a alias. We can say canonical name, right? And the seventh one is, what is that? SRV record, which is service location. You remember these records, okay? This will question ask 100% in interview, okay? So the question will, the maximum people has confusion, this lookup zone, okay? And I'm making you very clear here. DNS, two type of DNS, primary DNS server, secondary DNS server. Primary DNS server has
Read and write.
Yeah, primary DNS, it has a read, meaning of the read and write copy of DNS zone. Okay, right? Copy of
DNS zone.
DNS zone. Okay, this is simple definition. If you go and some reference of that, you will have the ultimately the same meaning only. Simple. Okay, but under the primary zone, you must understand this forward lookup zone, reverse lookup zone, and the forward lookup zone. You have the records, which is managing for all the host record, right? Start of authority records. What do you mean by start of authority record and name service record? How many servers you have installed the role on your environment, right? On the domain. Those are all called as a name server. Which machine, which DC or member server, right? Member server.
That's what you are saying is the name server is all the servers where you have installed the DNS role.
Right,
okay?
right. That's what you can able to see because we install the role on additional domain controller. We install the DNS role on Chennai domain controller. We install the role on UK domain controller. We install the role on Canada domain controller. We also install the role DNS role on different server. But who is the primary DNS server? What is the IP address we are providing as a primary DNS server? We will be providing for which is that server, right? Primary DNS server. Who has a primary DNS server, which means the IP address you are configuring, right? That is a primary IP address, which is here you have updated ncp.cpl. You remember all the machines we have provided IP address of that DNS server is, you have two type of, one is while you configuring the DNS, you have two type of DNS configuration. What are those? One is
primary and secondary. Others additional domain controller.
No. I'm talking about configuring the IP address. Here,
Static.
when you use the following DNS server, there is a preferred DNS server and alternate DNS server. You remember, always we have giving the preferred DNS server, right? And the same IP address we are following. Yes or no? All the we have given the preferred DNS server first IP address only, right? If you see the preferred DNS server, which one we followed, the DC one only, correct? 10.140.0. If you go and see the additional domain controller IP address would be 10.140.0.4. But whom we are pointing to reach out the DNS server, we are configuring the 140.0.2. And again, the client machine also whom we are telling to the pointed DNS server, we are configured the 10.140.0.2, right? CH and DC also we have pointed to 140, but we install all the machine DNS server, right? We install all the machine DNS server, that is called as a name server, and where you have provided the preferred DNS server, right? What is that? Preferred DNS server. That is called start of authority, right? Who is the primary DNS server? He has the rights to, authority. What do you mean by your authority, right? Now someone asking to query to you, right? They come and ask you, hey, can you please help me to find this IP address is searching, our name is searching. Do you help me? Do you have that records? If he doesn't have, right? If he doesn't have those records, he has the rights to pass the information, pass the query to the next level, right? That is the responsibilities of the authority. We call as a start of authority. Okay. There are some DNS servers also, they can read their environment or their boundary. If it is there, they will pass. Otherwise, they cannot pass the query. That is different DNS server. We'll talk about that. Okay. This we will talk about the exchange related. Okay.
So SOA record will be there in only primary DNS server.
Yes, start of authority. And he's a main persons, you can say, right? When you go and see your environment, just open the DNS see the design who is the start of authority. You can say this is a persons for the main guy for your DNS. And you can also check, and no need to go to the DNSMGM.msc. You can just go and check the IP configuration. Where is you mentioned the preferred DNS server, right? And find that DNS server, it is a primary DNS server. And the pointer record you are going to use in the reverse lookup zone. Okay, so it should be point with. Whenever you pointing, that is in we have configured only by default for a lookup zone. When you configure the reverse lookup zone, you have to point out your host name, right? It should also, that pointer has to be configured. I'll show you that how you want to be pointed. Just I yesterday created, right? Canonical name alias, and this is, you know, the actual domain, right? Accessing, but you don't want the actual name to be accessing outside, right? But you don't want to be actual name accessing, but you want to give that some alias name, right? It's a different name. By default, you have a nil.edu, your domain, right? You want to accessing some different name, you can relate with this original name, something, you know, solo.com. You want to accessing with this, but you can give this URL and it will be redirecting to the original name and you can able to access, but outside people never know what is the original name. They will not come to know, right? And this kind of, you know, managing some security reason, security point of view. So outside people, they know the original name of your internal infrastructure, right? For accessing that, that might be hit as a, you know, hacking for that. So most of the banking websites are all not original name. You might have seen that they never use their original name. They will be using for the alias name only. Banking, insurance, right? Those kind of websites use for the always for the alias name. Okay. And this SRV location, this is one of the important role. I mean, records, it has to point to respective domain controller across your forest. If trying to reach, right, this comes under for logon process, right? It comes under for logon process. Now, as we discussed, additional domain controller is not able, sorry, root domain controller is unable to access, right? Root domain controller unable to access. Now you want to authenticate for the different domain controller. Who is going to help? Okay, let me just log in this machine, then I can explain it. I'm just connecting my machine. This is another important, just keep in mind, okay? 1 minute, I'll just get it. Okay, I was talking about SRV location, right? SRV record. When you open the DNS mgmt.msc, by default, you won't be able to see that one. You will be able to see the all the records. Okay, what are those? Name services, A record, start of update record, MX record, pointer record, CNAME record, but you won't be able to see the SRV record default, right? So when you open this domain name, domain control name, so the lookup zone, .edu. Now you can see these are all the name services, start of authority, host record, and you want to create additional, right? Additional records called the host alias name, mail exchange record, right? And a pointer record would be coming here when you create a reverse lookup zone. Okay, so how it's creating the pointer record? Let me just delete this. So by default, it won't be created. Okay, reverse location is empty. So what you need to do, you need to create a new zone. Next, so you can see there is a difference here. Any zone you are going to create it will be a primary zone, right? As I said, there's a primary zone or also have a primary DNS server. Creates a copy of zone, it can be updated directly to the server. Secondary zone means it is also called as a secondary DNS server. Creates a copy of zone, exists on the another server. This option helps to balance the processing load of primary server and provide a fault alert. That's it. Okay. And the another called is the stub zone. This primary and secondary, this is a primary DNS server. This is secondary DNS server. When you configure the secondary server, I'll tell you that how you want to be configured for this. Stub zone, it is a important zone. It is made for the later, Microsoft has created a separate zone. Earlier we were using for these two only. Earlier we were using the only two. When the 2003 server is came into right, and from that they have introduced the stub zone also. What do you mean by stub zone here? Now, when you create a secondary zone, right? What's happening? You will have all the record will be get updated, right? You have a primary zone, right? When we created a primary server, right? And you have a forward lookup zone, and you have around think about 100 records, right? 100 records, including all host record, name service record, right? Additional records. So when you created a secondary server, right? And when you made a zone transfer, then all the 100 records will be get updated. Yes or no? Right? For a in a secondary DNS server, correct? Yes or no? It's completely secondary DNS server is dependence on primary DNS server, correct?
So it will be synced, otherwise we have to manually
we have to
move
do
the zone.
for we no, we don't need to move, we need to transfer the zone.
Okay.
Right? I'll show you that how to configure the secondary DNS server and how do you do the transfer the zone and sync with primary DNS server, right? So whatever the primary DNS server records are there, all records get updated to secondary server. Now, if you have 100 records, all the 100 records get updated, correct? If you increasing
Yes.
the many records, those all get updated. Now what's happening here, disadvantage here. Now some security point of view, right? Security point of view, right? Now think about this DNS server, secondary server, put some other location, right? For the resolving the name. But there, unnecessarily you having all the records, someone hack your secondary DNS server, right? So you have all the information available for them, right? Security point of view, it's a risk for secondary because this guy is a non-writable, right? He doesn't have anything rights to do, right? He always depending on the primary DNS server. But when someone is hitting into the secondary DNS server directly, but you have all the information available here. But we don't want to provide this kind of information directly to those people. What we can do, we should not give a more information. If someone hit to the my server, DNS server, but that information should not be updated there. So hence, the created is a stub zone. So what is stub zone here? It is also kind of stub zone is also kind of secondary DNS server. Okay. However, it has only 3 records, which is required mainly to resolve. What are those? It will get updated from the primary DNS server. What are those? Host record, name service record, and start of authority. That's all. Even though your primary DNS server has 100 or 200, it won't get updated. So for resolving purpose, what you needed, that is only you'll be get updated. Right? This is very rarely you are going to use with a non-secure place you want to be deployed. Instead of secondary DNS server, you can configure the stub zone. This is the main difference between of secondary and stub zone. And many people have a confusion on this. And answering the during interview, I never get a clear answer for them, right? So they will not be given, but this is actual answer. Tell me.
So what I thought is while creating the forward lookup, the reverse lookup will also get automatically created by checking the PTR record under it.
No, second, say reverse lookup, then it won't create directly. You have to create manually. You have to create manually. It will be like that. This will be like that only. Once your DNS server is configured, right? And if you go and see this, and this is record will be get updated. But when you click on the reverse lookup, it would be like that. So what you need to do, right click, new zone. Next, you must select for the primary zone only, and to all DNS for in this domain. And here is your giving IP, and just give the network ID first. This will be grayed out. Okay. The first 3 digits of IP address 10.140.0 you need to provide, and allow secure. Always you need to keep your DNS, never be keep on dynamic, and do not allow dynamic. Remember, if your environment is these two and your DNS or your infrastructure is risk. Why and how? If your DNS allowing both non-secure and secure dynamic update, what's going to happen here? Those people easily enter into the easily enter into the record will get updated, right? The outside persons come and connect the internet to you, your network. So your automatically host name is get updated to, it's not secure, right? And it's a dynamic update basically, right? And what do you say? This option is significant security vulnerabilities because update can be accepted for untrusted source. See here, right? Carefully you need to check it, and never be do not allow dynamic updates. Okay, so make surely that is you need to show. You can check it on your environment. It must be created, and just finish it. Here it is. When a zone is created, you must to point out to your host name. You have to tell to the host name. Right click on. You can say pointer record. So this is your IP address has to be created. So you have to mark with your host name. Okay, DC1. That's it. If you see, this is the one you have to. This is completely you are configured here. So verify that is, and you are checking how your DNS is working or not before configuring of your second reverse lookup zone. If you checking NS lookup options, it will tell you that is in requested timeout error. You might have observed. You want to be check how my DNS is working, is correctly working or not. Then you must able to configure second reverse lookup zone. Then verify that is your DNS is perfectly pointing to your DC1.nil.8 and IP address must be. Okay, this is you have to revalidate it once again. If you are not, the requested timeout message will come. Either your IP address, the DNS IP address to move into the 127.0.0.1, or you are not configure the reverse lookup zone. Okay, sometime you will have a lot of issues resolving of because of you not created reverse lookup zone. Maybe maximum cases the culprit guy is a DNS only. It will come many cases sometime RDPing of your machine and accessing UNC path for the server DFS server path. Some suddenly you won't be able to accessing because this reverse lookup just won't work. It cannot be resolved properly, right? This is one of the cases for troubleshooting. And I was discussing that, right? These are all records we are discussing, but where is the SRV record? We've seen these all the records, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But where is the SRV records? The SRV records would be under, which I said that service location, right? You can go to your domain name and you see this, there are other options are updated, right? Sites, TCP, right? When you go to the TCP, right, you can see the global catalog, Kerberos and LDAP. See, these are the SRV record, right? And what's happening? Why this SRV records is required? Now, as I said, now one of the domain control is down. Okay, root domain. You have already installed the 2 domain controller. One is root DC and additional domain controller. So how it is pointing to the additional domain controller, go and this domain controller and check it. Who is the responsibilities here? As I said, logon process, right? Now you are in different location. Okay, different location. Think about you are in Chennai location. Your default authenticating to the Chennai domain controller. So that Chennai domain controller is not working. Now how the Chennai user should is pointing to the different domain controller? Who is responsible here? this guy will responsible. SRV record will help during the communication. If one domain controller is not able to reach, he will helping you to reach, go and check the another domain controller. Okay, his responsibility to processing to the, you have all the domain controller SRV, right? He has that Canada DC, he has the Chennai DC, UK DC. See here, either way he has to go and connect, right? And he is helping you to point out and get authenticated one of the domain controller. Getting my point? So these SRV records is the most important, and during the logon process, this will help you to SRV record. So basically how the logon process was happened earlier when we were discussing the sites and services. We have seen this site, we have seen that subnet, right? Then we have seen the DC, correct?
Yes.
Site name identified. Okay, first you can say subnet. Okay, subnet. Then it belongs to one of the site. And then it belongs to DC, correct?
Yeah.
Now you got to know that is in subnet. Okay, and he is reaching to that site, and then the domain controller. This domain controller is not working, right? Now, how this rewriting to the another site domain controller? Who's doing the inside that? Pointing. The SRV record will point, will help to point to find another domain controller. Okay, either same site or different site. Getting my point? So SRV records will help us. That's what you can able to reserve for 1 second, please, sir. Yeah, yeah, okay. So these are basically 6-7 records are there. You should just go through once again. These questions will ask 100% interview. Do you know how the DNS works? Do you know what type of DNS servers are there? What are the zones are there? What type of zones are there? What do you mean by forward lookup zone? How many records are there? What are the important records we need to use it? What additional records are there? Right? What do you mean by pointer? What do you mean by MX record? What do you mean by start of authority? Okay, same record must be updated under the reverse lookup zone. Okay, same record must be updated under the reverse lookup zone. Same record. Okay, in a primary forward lookup zone, you have configured all the records. Same things must be updated in reverse lookup zone, right? Same records. This is we are talking about a primary DNS server. All we discuss in a primary DNS server, you must have that all the records, zone, FLZ and reverse lookup zone. Same things when you have a secondary DNS server. Secondary DNS server, how you want to do this and how it is working here. Secondary DNS server, right? All the records, as I said, all the records should be get updated. How is getting updated? Now I have a primary DNS server here, right? I have primary DNS server and I have these many records, right? These records, I will not be creating any additional zone or separate zone. I don't want to create it, but automatically all records should be get updated on the server. How it's coming? You need to have one member server, as discussed yesterday, member server, and just only install DNS rule. Then third point, create a zone. Which zone you need to create? Just create a primary zone. Okay. Sorry, not primary zone. You should create a, what is that? Secondary zone. Okay. Once you create a secondary zone, you won't be able to see any records. Can't see any records here, right?
So in the reverse lookup, we have to create a secondary zone.
Not reverse lookup zone. Another server.
Oh yeah, in the other server. So in reverse lookup only we have the option called secondary zone, right?
No, reverse lookup. No. Again, when you talk about secondary zone, it would be a FLZ. Not only reverse lookup.
Forward
FLZ,
lookup zone if we create. Okay, got it. Yeah.
Reverse lookup zone.
Yeah.
And this should come automatically in this forward lookup zone. Again, you should not see any of the records here. Any of the records here. Right? You don't see any of the records here. When you create a zone, automatically this FLZ would be updated. Right? And again, here also you don't see that any of the records. But what you need to do, you need to tell a primary DNS server, go to the primary DNS server here, your domain, go to the properties, go to the zone transfer here. By default is empty, right? Anything. When you click allow zone transfer, what it says here, allow any server. If you give any server, every server it will be considered, right? But I don't want to mention any server. Let's go with only server listed in the below. What I am going to do here, I will update here, or only the following server, I'll update here my secondary DNS server here, right? I'll update my secondary DNS server. So whatever this you have records here, right? Whatever this in this, all the records are there, right? All the records it would be here. You have, this is all called as a forward lookup zone, right? Same things you should be forward lookup zone you've done for the zone transfer. Same things you should be going to reverse lookup zone, properties, zone transfer, and tell them zone transfer only following, tell that is in second. Let me show you that clearly. Just I'm making you understanding how you want to be follow this. Okay, configure both the zones for zone transfer, right? And update secondary DNS name, correct? Then automatically, where you see that is earlier, it was empty, right? Here, any of the record. So automatically, after a few minutes, few seconds, if refreshing of your DNS server, so all the records get updated in FLZ and RLZ, correct? But what is the definition of the secondary DNS server? Can you create any records here? Secondary DNS server? Can you create, delete?
Can create. No, it's on read only. Yeah, it's only read only. Yeah, so only primary is.
It's a read only DNS server, right? You cannot create because it's a always is depending on primary DNS server. Remember, right? So let's come to this how you want to configure. Okay, just concentrate. We need a only member server, not for installing any Active Directory. Okay, you don't need Active Directory or DNS server already installed. You just need a only member server. Since we have already installed the member server of a client machine, we will make as a secondary DNS server. Let's take IP address of this. Where is it? Secondary server client, right? Yeah, here it is. Copy. I can say this is secondary DNS server. Just log in here.
Sir, I have a question. Hello.
Good.
Sir, in one of our client server means like in Bangkok, So if means they are in vwork location. If internet goes down, sorry, if servers goes down, okay, automatically internet will go down. So and when we check with vwork team, they tell internet is working fine. But when we switch on the server only, it will work. Means the internet will work.
Yeah, Arun, sorry.
So when I checked with my HK IT team, they told that they have mapped the DNS. Sorry. Hello.
Your voice is very
Hello?
feasible. Not,
Hello. Can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you, but not continuously.
I'm in my.
Guys, how about
I'm in my
others?
hometown, sir. Sorry.
I think your network little okay. I understood some
Yeah,
little of your
my
right.
home. Now you can hear me, sir.
I can hear you. I can
Now
hear
you can.
something.
Okay.
When the
Sorry.
internet goes down, something you're saying. What is that?
So what means one means our means in means Bangkok location we have a some team members. Okay, they are in vwork location. So they have some server. Means one server is there. Okay, if the server goes down, but vwork internet is working fine. But if our server goes down, our internet will totally means they will give a dedicated internet to our means our office. Okay. So when you switch on the server only, it will work. So when I checked with my IT team, they told us they have mapped the DNS IP address. They told. So what is that, sir?
Same thing. No, that is a person's to giving you the kind of forward. First, you need to reach there. Then that guy is between the bridge. Okay, for you guys, not for the viewer. For others who are working, they should follow. They should go via this server only to anything. Not only internet. Okay, not only internet. Anything you want to accessing that server must be accessible. If that is not,
so there
sorry,
protocol query or what they have done.
See, they must be created that all proxy. They must create it. Number one, number two.
They told me the DNS IP address has been mapped.
Right. That IP. That's what your network. They redirected to the first 2 point of the DNS. That IP address must be the DNS IP address must be provided in that server.
Yeah. Okay.
So what's happening? It's pointing that server first, right? Your all the network that's the pointing that server. So if that server is down, that's what they said. DNS is mapping for that server only.
Yes.
Might be it is not for entire network, but you who are vendor or kind of people, right? Those people
only that's only, sir, because in vwork dedicated internet only.
But you guys are not vwork employee, right?
No, we are not vwork employee. Means vwork we have taken an office, small office of 10 members. Okay, so vwork internet will be working. Okay, so when we check with them, it is working. But when the server was down,
yeah. That's correct. This is securely, there is different methodology they use for. They will not, connect with their network for any of the vendors. Right? They made separate connection. They should come first. They reach here. If it is allowed, then only you can able to access. Otherwise, it will be restricted there only, like that. But basically, we should have used the DNS pointer.
In our environment, there is a client machine which is using this DNS, right? This machine DNS. If this machine goes down, the DNS goes down, that client machine won't be able to reach the internet.
No, the two type of internet is not related here. Now, what's happening? You are, as I said, no, your ISP. Now, your internal DNS is different. You will not. I think your all client machine is not connected to the public, right? It won't be like that. So, internet must be accessible, but you won't be if you have only one DNS server, you won't be able to access. You will have the little time or less time to can be able to access because it's already cached. But longer period, you won't be able to access any of the resource internally with the name if your DNS is down.
But here in our client machine, we have only given one DNS. We didn't given 8.8.8. So otherwise, a loopback IP.
It is not a DNS. It is just a Google IP address, I think.
Google IP address. So if there is no DNS, otherwise, if the given DNS is down, how we will be able to reach the internet? Because there should be
no, that will not be directly managing. They will be using for internal proxy and secure firewall. It would be required. Okay, they never be using the internet. In between, they first reach to how the internet is accessing for the private network, right? The backend there will be firewall, there will be proxy, right? So from there it will filter it out. Some network policy will be there, right? And traffic will be managing. Your machine won't be directly hitting to the ISP provider. who is providing you to the internally, who is providing the internet, your proxy server or firewall server. You must reach to there, and that guy will filter it out securely. They will be validated. Okay, you are the our persons, then I will allow you to provide this IP address and you can use it to your internet. That's how it will be.
Okay. That's okay with the corporate. I was asking about our lab environment where we have the client machine, which is using our DNS IP
This
address.
GCP you're talking about, right?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Okay, here,
If
see,
this
right,
machine is down, the
perfect,
DNS machine is
but
down.
you observed what I did.
The secondary DNS.
No. I remember first class I have told Google Cloud has their own DNS server.
Oh, yeah.
We are using our own DNS server. That's what we did like that. Remember?
Yeah, I agree. So for if our DNS, the client IP, which in the client machine we have given our own DNS, right?
Right.
So if
You
our
say,
machine is down, will that client machine will be able to reach internet?
You're saying the DNS server is down. Yes, they can reach.
Down.
Why and how they can reach? I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Right now, say this all the machines is not connected with my directly connected with my DNS. Correct? These all the machines directly not connected, a dedicated one single network.
Yeah.
Okay. So even though if what's happening if we go to the client machine, even though if you not assign the IP addresses, forget about your DNS. Even though you not assign the IP addresses, they will be still able to access the internet. How?
Google GCP DNS.
That GCP will be giving, right? We can say IP config space all, right? I can see now the DSCP server. This is 10.140.0.1 default gateway. Okay, this person's and your IP address is taking 10.140.0.3, right? Actually, that IP address was using for the earlier the Google one, right? 110.140.0.2 for you using, right? For hours. So as I said, right, the connections are specific, DNS are specific, and in their DNS server, which is in a Google DNS server, it will be broadcasting to the all their network directly through network. Okay, internal. So even I'm not exactly surely how they are balancing, because we will be creating one project, right? We created one project. For this project, by default, there is a background network configuration has been done. But if you created another project here, but when you try to connect for that project in this server, it won't be able to. Get my point? You won't be able to. So what I'm trying to selling here, if you created another project, that's a background network they have configured, right? If you see, there is a networks, right? You can see here. There is a in between load balance might be using, right? Their configurations and default gateway should be using. Okay, let it be this for the Google Cloud. Forget about this Google Cloud. We don't need to be used in a production, but you must be knowing that is how the corporate and things is be using. Okay.
Sorry, I have a question.
Go ahead.
I understand that in a corporate environment that client machine don't go straight to the internet, that they go through the proxy. Who is actually
install what to install? Solo?
What I'm saying is that in some corporate organization,
okay,
if you want to browse, you don't just, their machine don't go straight to the internet, it goes through the proxy server.
Right, correct.
My question is this: who actually is responsible for configuring this proxy server?
There is
is it the network team or the server team?
Server team,
or server team. But they must be provided, because if they are configuring the server side, the server administrator is responsible. If they're configuring from the network devices like router, specific router, right, or Linux machine they want to be configured, the other team should be following. Overall, it's a combination of the network administrator and system administrator. This works. Okay, can we maybe later, can we have a look at the system administrator side and that proxy server? What do you want?
I mean, how the proxy server is configured.
No, I don't have proxy server to configure.
You said what?
I don't have the proxy server here. We will not be configuring any proxy server here. You are asking can we configure the proxy server and see that how it works like that, right?
Yes.
No, that is a little difficult. I mean, we need to look into that later, but I never did it for in this lab. Okay.
Okay, please.
Can we let me see that later? Can we finish it this second DNS server, please?
Yes, continue.
Okay,
I'm not saying do it now.
We'll see that. We'll see. I'll look at that later. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Now where we are now, I'm in a client machine, right? Which is I said the secondary DNS server, right? But I have not installed any of the role here. The first step to what you need to do, only install the DNS role. Like we have a member server already, right? And I logged in it, and you need to install only DNS role. Just go to the roles and feature. Next. What you need to do here, just only install the DNS role. So what we can do, let it install now. This is at 12:25 now. Take a quick break, come back to 15-minute break. Come back till 12:40, then we'll discuss further things. Good to go? We'll come back 12:40 after 15 minutes. We'll stop recording. So before the break, we just installed the DNS server, second DNS server, right? So now see that how we are going to configuring the secondary DNS server, how the zone is get updated to the secondary server. We did the second step, only install the DNS role. Now open the DNS console. Open the DNS console. DNS mgmt.msc. Okay. See here, is a by default zone is created, correct? Do you have any records here? Right?
No.
Nothing, right? As I said, the forward lookup zone and reverse lookup zone is by default there, right? FLZ, okay, a reverse lookup zone is by default. So any of the record, nothing, right? Now what you need to do, you have to configure both the zone, right? So what here, you need to right click in the forward lookup zone, create a new zone. Next, what is that? Secondary
zone. What if we configure primary again here? It will become primary.
It's become primary. It is without any database updated.
The previous DNS, that is also primary, right?
Correct. Previous DNS is a primary DNS server. Which one? Okay. This DC one.
We can have multiple primary zones as well.
But not. You can create it, but now how you pointing to the one server has to point out, right? When you're configuring the DNS server.
Yeah.
Okay, that which if you configure here as a primary zone, and you need to provide. Do you want to make this primary DNS server? So there's no point actually. It is not meaningful here, because it won't be a AD database integrated. Okay, you see this store the zone active directory is a grayed out and writable domain controller. You won't be able to if you create this now. Okay, just create a secondary zone. What is the name you have created? The zone name is nil.edu. What is the IP address? 10.140.0.2 dc1.nil.edu and finish it. Now you created just right. See here, zone not loaded by DNS server, right? Same things. Right click here, new zone. Next, you're just creating. Just giving the name. What is that zone you require, right? The IP address would be 10.140.0.
Yes, this should be reverse, I guess.
Yeah, reverse. Right. Same zone you were creating. Secondary zone, reverse lookup zone.
Then it should be ending with 0.140.10, right?
Not 10.
So that reverse lookup zone. For the reverse lookup zone, we have to come from backwards again.
No. You will be providing IP address. It is taking automatically here. You see here,
Okay.
the reverse lookup zone, correct?
Okay, got it.
Right. Next. And IP address you need to provide 10.140.0.2. Okay, just okay. Next, and finish it. Now both the zone is not loaded, right? So now you can see, right click here. This is the transfer from master, right?
Mhm.
And you can see the right click here, transfer from master. Before to do this, what you need to do, go to the DC1, go to the zone nil.edu, properties. As I said, you need to click on the zone transfer, allow zone transfer, only the following server, click on edit. Which server you want to do, you have to type here. What is the IP addresses you are creating a secondary server? Is 10.140.0.3, right? 10.140.0.3. Okay. If it is getting error, that's fine. You can just click OK. We're just updating the name. Okay. But still it is not resolved because it's not yet complete configured. Now this is reverse lookup zone. Also you need to go and properties to tell you need to zone transfer for this server. Following the server, edit here 10.140.0.3. And one more important, you have to provide the IP address here as an alternate DNS server. Okay. You have to provide your alternate DNS server is as a secondary DNS server is 10.140. You can go to the advanced DNS, type here 10.140.0.3. Okay. And also same in a secondary DNS server, ncpa.cpl. You have already updated who is the primary DNS server, 140.0.2. So you can tell him that you are the alternate DNS server, 140.0.3. Now we have done for the zone transfer from the DC1, right? Either you can restart the server here, restart not server as a zone here. Just refresh it once. Okay. For the get updated. Or you can say reload it here. One second, yes. Okay, so now what I can do, right click, alt task, just reload it here. Also better what you can do, just restart once. Okay. So go back to the server, you just refresh it. You just refresh it here. See, you just refresh it here. See, do you see here? You got all the records automatically.
Yeah.
Now both the records you got it, but you can you able to create here any record?
No.
See here. It's a completely writable domain, I mean readable domain controller, correct? Not domain controller, readable DNS server. And whatever
Yes.
records will get updated in a DNS server, primary DNS server automatically get updated. What is the purpose we use the second DNS server?
In case of backup, if
Yeah,
there is
it's
a
a
failure in
simple
the primary.
backup, or you can say fault tolerance, right? Ultimately, it's not depending on the one domain controller or one DNS server. I should have that is in other DNS servers can take care and resolve the name. Clear? Clear? Everyone?
Yes. Yes.
But now the one advantage, I mean disadvantages, right? What we discussed.
Sorry, what do we need to do if the primary domain controller is down? Oh, sorry, primary DNS server is down.
No need to do anything. If you have a created secondary server, the secondary service already help you to resolve the name.
Resolve.
Neil, for resolving DNS, okay, but for authentication, we have to give the DC machine IP, right? In the DNS, the thing.
See, that is already been taken care. No, the additional domain controllers. This is only the taking care about resolving the name.
Exactly. So we have two IPs to keep the DNS name, DNS IP addresses for the client machine, right? One is primary, one is secondary DNS server IP. So for authenticating, like with the username and password, we have to give the DC machine, right? DC machine IP.
DC machine is see what's happening, right? Now you have all the additional domain controllers already provided, right? Now in an additional domain controller, what IP address you provided? Just we have what we did. Obviously, that other domain controller also you have to provide the where alternate DNS server is this IP address. Now how many servers are there here? Now ADC we have. You must be providing the under ADC alternate DNS server IP address for who is that 10.140.0.3. In other client, every machine you are using, right? Every machine must have a 10.140.0.3 must be provided.
Okay,
I just
so
shown
you
you, right?
mean to say
Only
one
DC
should be the domain controller IP address in the DNS one, and second one should be the just normal DNS.
Secondary DNS server, right?
If DNS plus domain
Secondary.
controller one should be there, and in the second one only DNS.
Exactly, only DNS, which is secondary alternate DNS server.
Okay.
Now they are already hitting to the DC one first, because they are 10.142.0.2 is a DNS, your primary DNS server, correct? Now the DNS point of view, it is not resolving, he's not helping, he's not available now. Now on that machine, if it is the provided alternate DNS server, it will check another server. Oh, there is another alternate DNS server. Let me go and contact him. If he reached to the 10.140.0.3, yes, he has all the records and he can get updated.
For example, if we have one DC server and two DNS servers, okay, and there is one client machine. So
by default, it will go to the first machine.
So if I give just only two DNS IP addresses in the client machine, only DNS server IP address, I'm not mentioning the DC server IP address. Okay, if the user is trying to access the machine, otherwise if the user logs in and try to domain join the VM, since I didn't added my I have only added my DNS server IP address, I didn't added my domain machine IP address in the in the client machine DNS. Will I able to
it works. Ultimately, in the Active Directory, DNS is a main person, or important person. Active Directory works on the complete DNS. Without DNS cannot be work anything. Now you have another DNS server, right? Now while installing the Active Directory, you don't want to make this person as a DNS server. Say now this is DC one, right? What we did, we made this machine also as a DNS server, correct? We install this machine as DNS, and we understood this machine is also in DNS server. Now in your case, you have another server as a DNS server. You don't want to make this. This is just make a standalone domain controller.
Yes.
But ultimately, when you are installing this DC, you must provide a DNS server IP address here. Instead of you don't want to make this server as a DNS server, you must provide here for other machine which you're talking about.
Okay. So it goes to the
That
DNS
much
server
only.
first,
Yes,
and
yes,
DNS server
yes.
will go to
Go
the
to
domain
that.
controller and
Exactly.
get authentication.
Obviously, right? That person has to resolve the name, right? He should be authentic. That he should be verifying the records, right?
Okay. Okay.
Otherwise, it won't be connected. It won't be resolving that name.
Okay. What I thought is first we have to definitely mention the domain controller IP, then only it will be resolving and able to access.
When your domain control IP address, by default, as of now, there is all the domain controls are AD integrated DNS. As I said, AD integrated
yeah.
DNS. That is what the IP address is by default has been taken. Some cases, what's happening, if they don't want to use the AD integrated DNS, they have a dedicated DNS server. Okay, can we use the dedicated DNS server? So those dedicated DNS server, it's a many organizations has a separate DNS team would be there, and they have separate DNS server managing, and that IP address must be managing updating. They will not use a AD integrated DNS server. Here, if you might observe, you install the domain controller here, right? ncpa.cpl, but then they never use the same IP address of this machine. In this case, you think about they have a dedicated DNS server. There's a two type of environment can be used in a DNS. We use the same IP address as a DNS server, preferred DNS server.
Yes.
But your cases, if they have another dedicated server, you must provide here. Ultimately, for Active Directory, the DNS is needed. You use either AD integrated or any other DNS server additionally required.
Sorry, I have a question.
Good.
Is it possible, for example, you use them, let's say DC01, you install Active Directory role,
right?
Then with DNS install those those roles are installed at the same time. Then you now later decided that I'm not using this same server as DNS server again.
Okay, yeah.
Then I will need to build an independent primary DNS server that is not the one you initially installed. Can you change the IP address?
You're talking here?
What I'm saying is that let us say now that this very server is where you install the Active Directory role and the DNS.
Correct, correct.
Yes.
On 0.2, right?
Yes, initially. Then you later said, okay, I want to use a different server.
Yeah, you can use it. You can use it. But now what's going? And you have to configure the primary zone. You can use it. You need to configure the primary zone. Then you tell that is it. This is my primary, as I said, right? Here we did.
So that means you come here and change the DNS.
Right. Now.
Am I right?
Yes. No, I have not changed anything here. I just added for preferred DNS server. No, you're saying here, advanced, like that. Here you're saying.
Okay.
I did not remove for the older one. I just move into the second one. It is arrow mark, right? You just added.
You just add the new one.
Yeah, exactly. I did not remove anything.
Okay, I just move it. Okay, no. Move it up. Okay, I understand what you're saying.
Let me see this. For example, I say I'm going to add another one. Is 10 dot. Okay, 140.0.6 example. Okay.
Okay.
Now, if I added here, right, you can add multiple DNS server if you have here, right? But as a name server for resolving. Okay. It means these people are not, actual DNS server, but basically when you are going to see here, my primary DNS server, preferred DNS server is, and alternate DNS server here, but you want to add multiple DNS server IP address, you can add it here. But you want to see in the configurations place, but you can put into the arrow mark here. So this is a 148. You want to bring this up, then come back, then that will be get updated here. See here.
Okay.
This is what you can configure.
So you can also move it to as the primary one.
Yes, you can also move it. You can see.
Okay.
You can see this. But primary is already, you don't need to move the primary, right? Primary is always first one. Preferred DNS server.
That is what I'm saying now. That's where what I'm asking you. Assuming you are now using. You can do it. You can do it. This is the IP of that one.
Yeah, you can do it.
Server.
You can do it, Shobha. You can see here. See. but there's no point, right? You think about this is your primary DNS server. Actually, it's not a primary DNS server, right? This person is not a primary DNS server.
So Neil, actually, what Solo is telling us, the DNS server, the DC server, he removed the role. Otherwise, he wants to create another DNS server separately. He don't want a DC and a DNS server to be together in one server. So he
That's
has created
exactly
a new
what I'm
server.
asking.
Yeah,
Okay, understood.
he's
But yeah,
creating a
change
new
again.
server.
Yes,
Yeah.
again you have to change IP addresses that you don't want. If you keep the domain controller idle and remove the DNS server role, and which machine you are adding the DNS server, that IP address must be updated here. Simple.
Yeah, and creating a primary zone.
Yes, yeah, create a primary zone of that server and record must be updated. And go back to the which server you say, for example, you want to make this server as a primary DNS server, which is laterally changed, then create new zone, right? You know this primary zone is there already, and create it. Go ahead and process it all, right?
Got it.
When you say primary zone, again it would come you forward lookup zone. Here.
So after doing that, you will now need to uninstall the DNS role on the.
Not required. Not required.
You can still leave it there.
After that is you don't need to, you know.
What I'm saying is that the old DNS server that you don't want, will you remove the role? Is what I'm asking.
Removing or see what's happening, right? When you are changing the IP address, doesn't matter. If you keep that machine will be helping you to. If you keep the role as idle, it's no harm. But you're changing the IP address, number one, and you're creating a new zone for the redirecting to the different DNS server. That must be configured every machine. That must be taken care, updated all the IP addresses. If you want uninstall that, you can do it because you don't have, harm. But since you have to bake, because this is a little complicated. If you make sure you must change every machine who is your new primary DNS server, that IP address has to be updated everyone. Otherwise, keep pointing to the primary DNS server only, which is older one.
Okay.
Rather than that, you can create another VM and move the FISMO rules, make it the other machine
again,
primary.
Yeah, that
you can leave this machine.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You don't want anyhow that if you remove already DNS server, there is a idle domain controller, right? And already that process. If you have any roles, you can make it that is dump server as a without having any responsibilities. Later keep 1 week or 2 weeks as a shutdown or something, and then decommission it that server. Getting my point?
So a situation where maybe in a production environment you want to,
but not recommended actually, because this is if you have around thousands plus client machines and integrated all some applications, it's very difficult to changing DNS, and it's a very high risk. Okay. You never know that is in that will be resolving name with the older one. It is possible. I'm not saying that not possible, but you have to have all analysis, all risk, production. Instead of directly starting production, try to do the development, then test it. It is not a single one way to go configure and do it. For the production environment, I would say DNS is a major and critical role. Trust me, guys. It is down entire environment.
So if you want the DNS to be separate, to be on a separate server, for example, the order should be you install the DNS role first.
Yes.
On that separate server, then on another server you do your Active Directory.
Right. And create a zone of that server.
Okay.
Right. And then make that as a primary DNS server. Update all the persons to tell this is my primary DNS server. Point that IP address instead of older one.
Okay. No, I'm talking about a situation you have not installed anything, but the requirement is that you want to put the DNS server on a separate server.
Yeah, that's simple.
Yes.
That's just
I think you need to build the DNS server first.
Right.
Then you now build the Active Directory.
Not required. Not the Active Directory already there. Solo already Active Directory there. You just point the DNS server, which what you did the second DNS server. Now this machine I just installed the role, right? Instead of the primary zone, what I did, I installed the secondary zone. right? So if I would have installed the primary zone, now later what you need to do? But initially, remember, initially you want to make a separate a DNS server as a primary. During installation, you won't be able to get this checkbox enabled. Okay, it will not be a AD integrated. But later, once you've done it, this steps has to be taken care later and go to the properties. You should tell manually, I should be a AD integrated. Okay, here it is. Now you can see this is what we did.
Secondary.
Because this is the machine secondary, right? This won't be a database here. So you need to change here. Since it's a secondary, you won't be able to have options. So for your question, if you did another server as a DNS server and configure the primary zone, and during the configuring, it won't be having options to enabling the AD integrated. So later you have to do for this AD integrated change here, then you need to checkbox enable it here. Remember, this step has to follow later. Then it will be integrating with your Active Directory database, and it will all process to be get updated. Otherwise, what's going to happening? He will be dedicated primary DNS server, not for the AD database.
Okay.
Getting, you can see store the zone in a AD Active Directory and available only DNS server for in a domain controller.
Okay.
This step has to be followed later. But since it's my secondary DNS server, later what is our step here? We did it, and you can go to the properties. Okay, and you can just click on the change, and you should be. See, that is a secondary zone. You know that already why it is not grayed out. Why?
Yeah.
Because it's only
Because
store
it's
a copy of
secondary.
your existing zone, right? That is the point. And now the same things you should understand for this is the one topic. So quickly, I have already explained. Instead of now, I don't want to create a secondary zone. Getting my point? I don't want to create a second. I want to create a stub zone. What is going to happening?
It's only will create 3 records.
That's it. That's it. That's it. See here. Okay. You just refresh it, or you need to reload it. So what purpose we are going to creating here?
To just maintain only those 3 records, not all records, because of security reasons.
Yeah, exactly. That's a simple concept, right? Just understand. You might be going through that, different article and all. You feel there's some confusion, but this is simple things you need to keep in mind. Okay. Stub zone. You just restart once, and you will be able to see this. Okay. You just come back here. Okay, this is just you need to give some for a minute. See here.
Yeah.
It is changed. Earlier, how many it was, and now you can see this one is, and this one is comparison. See here.
This more.
But okay, you will not be able to see this all, right? So, but it is just for the lab, right? You can see that in a production you have 100 kind of records, right? You will not be able to see. These are all name, service, data of authority, and host.
I thought in this secondary it will not show this ADC CHND. It will only show a start of
no. As I said, 3 records. No. 3 records.
Okay.
What is that?
Okay, I understand. Okay,
I got it right. As I said here.
Host record. Can you add record to that host?
What I say? What I need to do?
In the stub zone, can we add or create a record?
No.
No, what I'm saying is that can you type?
No. You're saying typing, you're saying?
No, that the here. I mean, after host, you just say, type record.
Okay, records. So like that?
Okay.
This is the one you're talking?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Only these records. Okay, clear, guys? Understood at least concept clear? Stub zone, secondary DNS server, primary DNS server records. So that's it, guys, today. So we'll connect next week for the topic. But next week we will be using the lab for our own, for the DSAP and others, not for the cloud. We will talk later. Any question?
There's something I wanted to ask you about, not related to DNS. What is the purpose of creating in Active Directory? What is the purpose of creating service accounts?
Okay, we'll talk later. We'll talk.
Okay.
I have that's a neat explanation. It's almost 1:12 now for here. I need to log in for my office today and yesterday working. Right? Okay, we'll talk about.
Okay,
Service is a topic, is application related, database related. We need a specific, we don't want to change a password, right? And administrative access would be required. That is a reason we need to create. We will discuss a couple of things today.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Take care, guys. Bye. Meet you later. Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay.